Hello and welcome. This is David. Welcome to another installation of the Human Technology Tools videos. The Human Technology Tools are designed to give you a reminder of how life works and a powerful application tool for that knowledge for when you need it the most. There are several of these tools and they're all meant to work together. Now this particular one is called the BeliefsLiberator, and it will help you install new beliefs and replace old limiting beliefs. It's one of the most powerful tools you can find for belief change or belief work. Extremely powerful. It's based on NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and yeah, you're gonna love it. The more you use it, the more you realize how powerful it is, and the more you get comfortable with it. So you can download and print this PDF that you see in front of you here from the website ahappypocket.com. That's ahappypocket.com. So just go ahead and download that, and you can print it and use it for each time that you need to change a belief or something. Okay. Now let's get started and let's have a look at what this is all about. So as you can see at the very top, it says you see what you believe. Well, quite literally, the life that you experience is based on your beliefs, the feelings that you have, and therefore the thoughts that you have, and also the actions that you take, and your physical environment is all built on based on your belief system. So this is how you go about changing a belief and dropping a limiting one and putting in a new one. Of course, you're gonna download this PDF and read through it carefully. So I'm just gonna go real quick over it. We're not gonna read every single sentence. This is just to give you an overall idea of what the concept is. So at the very beginning, what you do is you literally open your mind. You declare. Your declarations are very powerful. You declare that you are willing to accept the idea that you are much more than your characteristics, your powers and limitations, generally your mental, emotional, and physical contents, your circumstances, your beliefs, your experiences, all these things that you have in your life. You declare that you're willing to accept the idea that you are much more than them. In other words, or at least you're at least open to entertain this idea that you are willing and that you are more than your life circumstances, or than your ideas or your feelings or your issues or your goals. You're more than that. Okay? So once you're open and willing to accept that, or at least if you even know that, some of us already know that, so but still it's good to start with that declaration so that your mind is primed to take in new stuff. Yeah, your whole system rather, not just your mind. So the next step is to disidentify with whatever is limiting you, and so on, and recover your core self, or remember who you really are. And with this, the sentence is, I have, or I feel, whatever it is, but I'm not that thing. So for example, I have a body, but I'm not my body. I have thoughts, but I'm not my thoughts. I have beliefs, but I'm not my beliefs. I have circumstances, but I'm not my circumstances. So this is an extension of the first one. It's an extension of the willingness declaration. Yeah. So now you start to disidentify, since you've already said that you're willing to realize that, or that you're larger than these circumstances and characteristics. So now you start to name them so that you can. It's a very powerful thing. It starts to literally unlock the identifications that you had, because once, let's say, you accept, let's say, that I am that. If you accept that, then it's very hard to change over to another I am that is contrary to that first one. But once you disidentify, then it's very easy to switch around. See? So these are examples. Of course, you'll fill in. These worksheets are supposed to be used for each belief that you need to remove and switch over with something else. So whatever it is that you're working with at that time, that's what you will fill into these blanks. Then of course you'll say to yourself that all these things that I have, are constantly changing and lie within who I really am. They lie within who you really are. Yeah. After discarding my self-identification with the mental, emotional, and physical contents of my life, what remains is a permanent center of pure consciousness that knows no limits or bounds. A permanent center of pure potentiality, dynamic power, and awareness. Okay. Then, this is a very standard NLP technique. Since now you're in that space, I don't know whether you notice that you feel more expanded, and you feel a bit more free than you're feeling just a while back, after you've gone through these 2 steps. Now anchor that state. In other words, lock it in, right? So first you ask yourself, how did you feel? What did you notice? Yeah, how did you notice it? What senses did you use to notice that feeling of freedom and being disidentified and having your core self recovered? What about the intensity? What was the sensory quality like? Really, get into that feeling and notice how it is. Then this is how you anchor it. Anchoring, by the way, is locking it in so that you can recall that same feeling in the future when you need it. That is anchoring. In a lot of professional sports players, whenever they're they anchor a lot of these states of winning, so that when they're in the play, when they're now playing their game, and maybe they really need to feel again like a winner. Maybe they're just down on their points and they need to win again. Since they've anchored the state of willing, they recall it maybe by a tap or a little thing that they do, maybe like could be a ritual, could be a way they pinch themselves or something that they say to themselves, and it brings back that state, that winning state. It triggers the memories, and not just in the mind but also physiologically, because that's what is important. It brings back the feeling. So this is what I'm suggesting here that you do. You anchor that state, okay, of being larger than your circumstances. The way you do that, you can add a gesture, such as a body movement, like making a face or pinching yourself somewhere, or maybe you pump the air with your fist. You can also add a sound or a word, so that when you say that sound or word, again it triggers the state. There's all sorts of things you can do. It's up to you, whatever makes you feel comfortable. Think of something you can use whenever you need it. Easy for you and good for you. Everyone is different. Okay. So then the next stage, number 4, is to identify the limiting belief that you wish to let go of. You've already, by now, I'm sure you've identified it, but you write it down here. Then identify what you believe about that belief. In other words, what meaning do you give it? Specifically, what judgments do you give it? A judgment is good or bad, and usually that is about you. You're like, let's say you believe that you're not worthy of having XYZ. If you look at that belief carefully, it can go something like this: because I am not good enough, because I'm a bad person, because I'm damaged, or because whatever. You see, there's a judgment, and therefore, and you can also add another. You can also see. I'm not saying that you make this up. I'm saying you realize what you're telling yourself at the deepest level. You can also realize that there's another statement, maybe it might go something like, and therefore I will never be accepted in this place, or whatever it is. See? So those are the judgments and reward consequences. A consequence is a reward or a punishment. Always, same thing. I think we already mentioned that, and therefore I will not be accepted here. That's a punishment. See? So the things that lock in a belief are usually the judgments and the consequences that you have assigned to them. That's the meaning. You might think that this is a truth about life, that the judgment or the consequence you've assigned to a belief is a truth about life. But let me tell you here now, it's not a truth about life. It's just something that you have decided is a truth about your life, and then you think it's a universal concept. But it's a very personal thing, right? So the judgments and consequences that you've attached, write them down there, because that's the glue that keeps that belief in there, right? So let's see what's next. So the next one is to identify your sensory belief representations. In other words, if you had a mind movie, you do have a mind movie actually of your belief, when you're kind of absent-minded and you're running this movie in your head based on that belief, We all do that, so it's very familiar. We all daydream and run these funny little movies in our minds. So for this negative belief, what does your mind movie look like? So write that down here, and then break it down into the cinematic representations, because that's how your consciousness stores these patterns. See, a belief is a thought pattern. That's what it is, and it's so what happens is the way it creates reality is that you have a thought pattern, and then you literally get energy from your higher self, because that's where the energy always comes from, and then you shine it through this pattern, and then it projects all sorts of feelings, thoughts, actions, behaviors, and physical manifestations. So the pattern, energized by your life energy, is what projects the creation. So at this stage, you need to figure out how your pattern looks like, and you just go through these boxes and ask yourself, what kind of sounds do I have? When I'm just try and get conscious to that self-talk you're telling yourself and everything. Whose voice is it? What kind of, how many sounds are there? Where is it coming from? How far is it? What's the volume? What's the quality? About the pitch and melody. In other words, is it something like, you will never make it, or you will never make it, or is it like or is it coming from the left or the right? If you're careful in noticing, you realize that these are actually true representations. In fact, when you think you see the world, you're actually seeing your own representations of the world. So this is why it's very important. Science has now proven that we don't have, what am I trying to say? The physical senses that you use to experience the world, let's say the eyes, ears, nose, whatever, all of them, they get, let's say, 100 billion bits of data. Then they filter 98% out, as in you don't even realize you received it. The other 2% is converted to electricity. Like your ear has an eardrum, so that converts vibrations of sound into an electric impulse. Your eye has a retina that converts light into an electric impulse. Your tongue, and so on. And these impulses go into your brain, and then they're distorted, all sorts of stuff. So in the end, and then reconstructed in your mind. So in the end, you think that you're looking at an outside, whereas all along, you're looking at an inside. It's you give meaning to everything. You change everything. Now as you see what you expect to see. So it's important to understand what is it that you've constructed inside you. How does it look and feel like? Because that's what exactly you're going to experience in it. There is no out there really. So the same with the visual. How does it look like? Images, size, distance, number. Again, the book goes a bit more into these details. So you can just get the book A Happy Pocket Full of Life from ahappypocket.com, and it really covers this stuff in detail. So if I'm rushing, don't worry, you can read up more from the book A Happy Pocket Full of Life. Okay, so here other visual characteristics, something like, is it panoramic or bordered? In others, is it something that is in a frame, in a box, or is it something that spans your whole internal view screen? Is it associated or disassociated? In other words, are you inside the picture? Are you part of the picture, or are you kind of like observing it the way you watch a movie? Is it in 3D or 2D? Is it in color or black and white? I was surprised to find out that some people actually dream in black and white and have never had a color dream. I was shocked. I thought everyone dreams in color, but apparently they don't. Anyways, is it a snapshot or a movie? All that stuff. Again, language. What are the words? Is it your voice or others? Sensory based or evaluative. In other words, are you thinking about it, or are you feeling the I don't know how to use that, but anyways, you understand the meaning of these words. Sensory based, or are you evaluating it in a sort of like audio digital way? The location, is it current or dated or past, or futuristic? The language, what language are you using in your movie? What about your feelings of emotions and touch and so on? What are the exact sensations? Where do you feel it in your body? Is it on your back, on your stomach, in your head, on your heart area? Do your fingers tingle? Do you shake? Do you feel warm? What intensity, texture, rhythm? You see, is there moisture, area? How big is it? Extent? Is it still or moving? See, all that stuff. So write all that down, and then test for the key cinematic features. To see which ones are the most significant. For some people, for example, it might be that they've stored a certain belief in the voice of, let's say, their mother. Yeah. That doesn't mean it's your mother's fault. Your mother didn't put the belief there, you did, but you've somehow chosen to store it in your mother's voice. And so if this is a belief that you want to get rid of, and it's in your mother's voice, maybe that's the key, that's the single most important anchor that makes it stick. So think, just start to play around with it. What if you change your mother's voice in that representation to Donald Duck's voice? So instead of like, an authoritative female voice, you change it into Donald Duck's voice, like, So just mess it up and see how that changes things. So in other words, I'm asking you to get familiar and comfortable with those cinematic features so that you know them properly and stop running away from them or fearing them, and then start to mess them up a bit so that you can start to shake and dismantle that belief, because remember, these are some of the glues of it. So next is write down a new positive replacement belief statement, and you should write down as an identity, a process, or an ability. For example, I am, I can, or I always do X, Y, Z, blah, blah, blah. So write that down. And then you go back to the limiting belief and you disidentify linguistically. So I have a belief that X, whatever it was, but I'm not my belief. Again, that's to remind yourself. And then you step back and you realize that if you lost this belief and any of your other psychological and physiological characteristics, contents, or powers, your true divine self would always remain unconditionally and eternally valuable, and full of infinite potentiality. It's pure consciousness. So by stepping back, once again you realize, hey, everything, all these things are just contents within my vast consciousness. It's not who I am, they're just tiny little seeds and drops within that vast consciousness. And then distinguish self from function. So now, since you've done that, step back, notice how there's a difference between your core self, or your true divine self, and the ideas, beliefs, habits, characteristics, bodily sensations, feelings, etc. that you are holding. They're just contents of your psyche. They're not your true identity. They can be added, removed, modified at will. You are the creator and user of these things. Okay? And then program in the new positive belief and rehearse it. So now you say, my new mind movie of this new belief looks like this. Write that down real quick. And then go ahead and again, just like with the old limiting belief, make up the cinematic features as you feel would be best suited for you for that belief. Just put that in there. After a while, this becomes easy because you'll start to notice that anything that I positively believe and I like, I tend to represent it in this way. I tend to be associated with a picture. It tends to be panoramic, for example. It tends to be in color. So you start to find a pattern of how you best represent beliefs that are powerful and good and positive for you, so that any new ones that you come up with, you put them in the same way. So, just fill that chart in. That's for the new belief. And then what happens next is you need to rehearse it in your privacy, and just rehearse it, like act that movie out, that mind movie. Just act it out. You can do it in front of a trusted friend afterwards, once you've done it a few times by yourself. But this is the key thing: act it out, just like you're playing that part in a movie. Play out some scenarios that involve that belief in application and so on, because what happens is physically acting it out will start to anchor it strongly in your system. It's the coolest thing you can do. It strongly anchors it in you. So act it out until it feels natural and settled inside of you. Polish it until you feel it strongly and integrally and can express it congruently to a stranger. And then say a big yes to it. In other words, give it a good judgment and good consequences. Something becomes a belief only after you accept it as truth and say yes to it, and then you give it a good judgment. Because judgment is good, bad. So for example, let's say, you give it a judgment that is congruent with the judgment that you already give your identity. So for example, you can say, I am a good person. Then let's say the belief was supposed to do with money. So you say money is a good thing to have, and then you follow up with a good consequence, which would be a reward in this case. So for example, because having money enables me to appreciate and experience more of what life has to offer, and it enables me to share that with the people that I love. And then the next thing is to check for ecology. What does that mean? It means, does this new belief enhance your life in the short term and long term? Does it limit you in any way? Does it fit with the rest of your life? Are there any conflicts at the beliefs, the tribe, the relationships, or other levels? Tribe means your culture, your society, your family, your world. If there's any conflicts, there's some cultural beliefs that are so prevalent that they interfere with our lives even if we don't realize it. So, maybe you need to get rid of some of those cultural beliefs that are conflicting with your belief. Is there any reason why you might not want this new belief to work for you? If you discover any parts that don't pass the ecology test, you need to also work on those other beliefs so that there is harmony and synergy. Once you got all that clean, you're good to go. So the last step, number 15, is to surrender and let go. Your work is done. So you just surrender and let go to your higher self, knowing that your life will begin to shift in the best way for you, as your higher self is always working in your best interest and knows the best approach for all things from its expanded viewpoint. Remember, your higher self can see your life in the past, future, and present at the same time. It lives in the here now. So you can trust it. So that's basically it. You can download this PDF from happypocket.com. It's a wonderful piece of NLP, as I think you've noticed how powerful it is for belief change. And for more instructions, look at the book A Happy Pocket Full of Life, again from happypocket.com.